Does your family ever get exasperated with you for stockpiling such things as paper towels, bottled water, or toilet tissue? Well, they certainly can't object to you stockpiling money. Silver, the only money recognized by the U.S. Constitution, and your first 10-ounce bar of pure silver can be had at spot price with no premium by going to sdbullion.com/RP. And when you buy it that way, you'll be supporting Reluctant Preppers as well by going to sdbullion.com/RP. Thanks.
This is a quick update to thank you for building our number of patrons to 70 and growing on patreon.com/ReluctantPreppers.
Soon, when we reach 100 active patrons, we're going to start sending out a 1-ounce U.S. Silver Eagle each and every month to one active subscriber, so you don't want to miss out on that.
Please help us grow by subscribing today at patreon.com/ReluctantPreppers.
As a responsible person with growing concerns for your privacy and personal liberty, you want to know where we're headed and what you can do about it. We ask the experts what you need to do to take prudent and responsible action to safeguard your family's wealth and well-being, and what basic first steps will help you to be aware and prepared. ReluctantPreppers.com.
Welcome back, Reluctant Preppers. We're always delighted to have this returning guest, very popular with our viewers. Gregory Mannarino has been named the Robin Hood of Wall Street. He's back here with us again to answer your viewer questions on Reluctant Preppers. Greg, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Great to be here.
Before we kick off with a number of viewer questions that I'm going to select from the list of those that were submitted, and there's been a lot, way more than we can handle, I wanted to run something past you that actually came in the mail. This is a document from one of our banks. This is from Capital One. Let's see if I can get this on screen so that you can see it, and everybody can see it. This is an online savings account that we have. And the real reason we got that was because they were offering higher interest rate than our local bank did. So we've had that for years and years. It used to be called ING Direct, Orange Savings Account. Now it's called Capital One because I got bought out. But this thing came in the mail that says, we're committed to you and your security. And that sure sounds really good. And then you open it up, and it says right there, starting August 1st, 2018, you'll have new ACH external transfer limits. So that you're going to have something that you don't currently have. Well, that's usually a good thing. They said it was for our security, but what is this ACH external transfer limits? Well, I mentioned the whole reason that we set up a online savings account was for higher interest, but we wanted to make sure we could get easy access to the money. So the way you do that is anytime you want, you just connect online or by the phone and you just move money from your local checking account to that savings account or back. And one day, boom, boom, the money's back and forth. But they're saying there's going to be new limits. And it goes in the fine print here, and it says that they're going to establish, starting on August 1st, they're going to start establishing what they call flexible limits to protect the integrity of your account. So flexibility is usually good, right? But they said it's going to be entirely up to their discretion to change without notice and at any time the limits. They're not telling you what the limits are, how much it's going to be, when they can change it, how much. But as I said, I held this up to my wife, I said, it has already started. They said it couldn't happen here, but that means we will, whenever they feel like it, we will not be able to get access to our funds. We've had this happen before with TD Ameritrade, and now it's happening with our savings bank. So you've spoken many times to us about the mantra of becoming your own central bank, and I just wanted you to weigh in on this official notice we received that we basically, all Capital One customers have been put on notice that these capital controls could be clamped down on us at any time and changed at any time without any notice. So how does the Robin Hood of Wall Street react to that?
First of all, I think that's it's both shocking and kind of maybe not, I guess, at the same time. There's so many facets to this. We could probably dedicate a whole show just to this, but let's just say, okay, number one, this is capital controls. They're now going to dictate to us what we can do with our money. It's not ours anyway. You know that better than anybody else here. The cash that we think is ours, it's not ours. It's owned by the issuing central bank, in this case the Federal Reserve, and owed back to them plus interest that they print out of thin air. It is the biggest illusion in the history of the world, in my opinion here. None of this is actually ours, and what they're dictating to us right here, and they're saying, we'll do what we want with your cash. Look, it's
but it's for your own good.
But it's for your own good, of course. And that's how they spin it. This is for your own good. It's for your own security that we're going to limit the access that you have had in the past to what you think is yours. And it's just bizarre. But yes, no doubt about it. if you, and you know this, hold it in your hand or you don't own it. And that's for anything in life, I believe. So all the cash there, it doesn't even exist. It's not on the elemental chart. I urge everyone to go to the Federal Reserve's website and just look at how much actual cash is in existence. It's 1.6 trillion of printed cash. The rest of it, it's not real. But everyone thinks it's real. It's an incredible set of dynamics. And thank you, really, for showing something like that to everyone, because this goes back to what you and I and a lot of other people have been trying to explain to people for years. Wow, that's a big tell in my opinion.
So you've often provided people with strategies that they can use for, as you say, become your own central bank and bet against the debt. Just before I guess those will probably play out in some of the things we've talked about, but this is partly because of the seeds that you planted in those earlier discussions that my wife and I made decisions over the past years and months to reduce our exposure to these kind of controls being clamped down by saying, we want our funds to be more accessible to us than what this kind of thing can happen at. And we've been told, this can happen at a moment's notice. In fact, that's one of the questions from one of our viewers was, you've talked for some time about either a financial reset or a debt collapse or a credit lockup. And do you believe that it will happen gradually and slowly, or do you think it'll happen suddenly and all at once and without warning?
Suddenly, all at once, and without warning, and more importantly, when nobody expects it. It's going to come at a time where everything is just looking just beautiful, kind of like we are now. Now, I'm not saying it's going to happen now, but nobody, in my opinion, I'm definitely not, maybe somebody is, smart enough to know what that triggering event is going to be, what it's going to set off. I have no idea. I can't speculate about it. But if the past is any guide, these things they come at you from left field. They catch you off guard. So that's why it's so important, especially now that you have something like that the banks are telling you right now they're going to start controlling your access to what you think is yours. It's not yours anyway, but okay. So that's very interesting. But yeah, absolutely. It's going to come fast and furious, no doubt about it, completely unexpected, out of left field. And more importantly, again, when things are just looking absolutely perfect, that's when we're going to get hit with something. It's not when things are going to go downhill. It's going to be just blindside. That's how I believe it's going to happen, because that's what we've seen pretty much every single time in the past we've had an event like that. They just come at you from out of nowhere.
I guess another way to look at that is bubbles are always their biggest right before they pop.
Absolutely. I mean, we have distortions in this market across the spectrum of that, and nothing is real. Nothing has a real price discovery mechanism behind it. Everything is being twisted and distorted even further. And it looks great right now, doesn't it? Well, it will until it doesn't. That's it.
Melissa Hauser asks, Peter Schiff mentioned the yield curve may dramatically steepen before it inverts due to jittery U.S. creditors dumping treasuries at some point in the future. Do you agree or disagree, and what difference would it make?
Oh my goodness, absolutely. I mean, look, the yield curve has been, let's talk about this. Right now, the yield curve has been flattening out pretty much on a steady basis for almost like 2 years. When I first started warning people about this, I think there was a 60-point spread between the 10 and the 30. I focus on the 10 and the 30. I do not look at the 10, the 2s and the 10s, or the 3 months and the 10s. I just don't look at these things, because I'm not looking for, and I don't think many of your listeners are, a recession. We want to find out what's coming down the pike here. The 10-30 spread has inverted the last two big market meltdowns, the 2008 and the dot-com bubble. So that's what I look at. I don't care about the middle short curve. It's about look here, don't look here with regard to the mainstream. So for me, it's the 10 and the 30. Peter's absolutely could be right here. I expect to see volatility in the bond market. But look at the bigger picture. Let's step back. And just a couple of weeks ago, we had a 9-point spread between the 10 and the 30. I think today it's like 13. So it's going to move around a little bit. Nothing ever just goes in a linear way anywhere, whether it's a stock price, whether it's an asset price. It's going to have a more or less random walk with a trend drift.
Right.
So that's how I see it.
We've got a question about silver specifically, because that's one of the tools that you've mentioned in the past as being able for ordinary people like you and me to be able to use to basically hedge against the actions of the irresponsible central bankers. But they're asking an interesting question because silver can also be considered an industrial commodity. Frank Scarfone says, please ask Greg the following. Because silver has many uses in industry and is very important to the economy, do you think the government will categorize silver as only a commodity like copper and zinc and not as money like gold, thereby preventing silver's dramatic rise when the reset happens? Basically, putting price controls on silver because of its importance to our economy.
Well, we've already heard from Ben Bernanke on that. He doesn't believe gold is money. So look, they can say what they want to. You've got to look at historical precedents. Historically, it's money, period, for thousands of years. So I don't care what comes out of their mouths. It's still going to be money. What are they going to do to try to suppress it? They're already at it in full swing. There's no doubt about it in my mind, but I still believe, and I'll stand by this I won't change my mind, that for the long run, these are where we need to be. We've seen this before. Again, when you have a situation like we have now, and there's been nothing like it ever in the history of the world, where world central banks have bought everything to try to prop things up here, there has to be a moment where this will normalize. In other words, they've gone out of their way to deliberately create an environment of risk, therefore reinflating a stock market bubble and a housing bubble on the back of the debt bubble. This will reverse. And, it shouldn't surprise anyone because these markets run in cycles. This isn't like a big conspiracy. I urge people to just look at the market over a long stretch of time. Over every 10, 15 years or so, to 18 years, we get these booms and busts and booms and busts. So we're overdue for these bubbles to correct. And that's the only job of this market, which is really sad because it's not being allowed to do its only job, and that is to determine fair value. It's going to do that. When? Don't know. I almost don't care anymore. I just know for the long run what we need to do: become our own central banks, bet against the debt, give them back their product. If they want to manage it under us, if they don't want to give us access to whatever cash that we think we might own, give it back and incrementally add to your own stash of undervalued assets. And in my view, that's gold and silver. I also own platinum and palladium. I think they're undervalued too. I still believe the most undervalued of them all is silver, but gold's running pretty close. But again, that's my favorite metal is silver.
Hey, we've got another question here that's interesting about, and you've talked recently, in fact, I think you tweeted just today or recently about the market leaders shifting from the financials to the technology stocks. That may be part of the answer to this question. Johnny asks, what are the changes that the deep state keeps the stock market bubble from bursting to keep the pension funds solvent as long as possible? Well,
that goes back to a whole bigger thing here, which is the debt as a whole here. But with regard to market leadership, it's been tech for a long time. I believe the market was looking for it to maybe get carried over to financials. Financials actually did gain today a little bit because the bond market sold off. So this is positive for financials here. The market has been relying on just a few stocks to keep it where it is. And there's an incredible effort to, I guess, continue that. But there's going to be a breaking point. When? Don't know. Again, don't care. Again, going back to things like pension funds and stuff, these are all more directly linked to the debt market, which is in a bubble of epic proportions. So there could be and there will be. I mean, it's not just Greg Mannarino saying this anymore. You've got guys like Alan Greenspan, you've got major Wall Street banks, investment banks, all talking about the potential here for a rapid sell-off in the bond market. And that is going to it's going to wreak havoc around the world. Like I think people have no idea, and it's going to be unfortunate the way it's going to unfold, and hurt people, and that's what bothers me.
We have another question. This one's a different one about LIBOR and the fact that it's going to be going away by 2021. Resourceful Girl says the LIBOR will no longer exist after 2021. What impact will that have on people, and what's the replacement?
That's a great question there. What is the replacement? I'd be willing to bet that whatever it is not going to be in our favor. They're probably going to come up with some new type of a calculation, how they're ever going to work it. Don't know. I really don't. Look, all we do know is first of all, there was that whole LIBOR scandal. You remember all that?
Yeah.
What happened? What happened with that? It just kind of disappeared, didn't it? Like everything else, like the European debt crisis, that disappeared too. How do they fix these things? They actually can't fix any of this. And this goes back to what we were just talking about, whether the LIBOR is going to disappear or be morphed into some other type of thing here. Look, I believe beyond any shadow of any doubt that there is already in the works a completely new set of things that they're going to shove down our throats, just like the bank just did to you, and they're going to tell us it's for our benefit and our security. It's the truth. And it's funny because some people are going to believe that it is in our this is a great thing to limit access to our cash or institute a new type of a way to measure interbank lending or whatever it might be. Mm-hmm. But all I do know, beyond any doubt, and you know it too, and everyone listening probably who tunes into your show realizes it will not be in our best interest. You have to have your own best interest in mind. And this whole thing, as complicated as it may look here, and you want to look over at yield curves or LIBOR rates or whatever the heck is going on with backdoor quantitative easing, which is still going on, it just breaks down to a couple of simple concepts. And the most simple of them all is that we have distortions in this market that are going to correct. There's no doubt about it. And this is, again, not a conspiracy. It's just cycles. We've never seen this before. What makes this so different, again, is world central banks have really, unfortunately, created a Frankenstein. It's a financial Frankenstein, this debt bubble to prop everything up. And it's going to correct. We do know that because it's happened to every single other bubble in the history of the world. And this is no different than any other bubble, except this is a lot bigger. So it's going to correct in a much more destructive way. So again, just going back, become your own central bank, bet against the debt. Make sure you have an understanding that the environment we're in, wherever you want to look, is not real. It's fantasy land. And I think, unfortunately, the way things are going right now with tariffs and possible trade wars and currency wars and debt wars, which we're in a lot of trouble here in the United States because we're already maxed out around the world, that this has the potential to lead to a shooting war. So anyway, we'll see how that plays out. Hopefully I'm wrong.
That's another one that's maybe related, so I'll go ahead and ask it at this point, and that is... This is from Dive. Dive asks, wondering if you can ask Gregory Mannarino what he thinks will happen to the other Western countries when the USA collapses. Are they all in the same boat?
Well, we are all in the same boat because of what central banks are doing at the same time. Does anybody here listening think it's a coincidence that all world central banks are doing the same things at the same time now for an entire decade? So again, this is not, when this thing corrects to fair value, that's the way I look at it here. It's going to affect everyone on Earth. Oh, I don't care what, unless you live in some obscure tribe in some obscure part of the world that doesn't have access to anything. Mm-hmm. But you're going to be exposed in some way or the other here. The environment across the board is fake, and that's what we need to understand. So it's going to sweep the globe. We've never seen anything like it before, and I don't know how they can stop it from unwinding again in an extremely disruptive way.
Okay.
Everywhere.
This one's back to home again. Repeal 16 asks, can Trump take the Fed down and stop paying interest on our debt to the cabal?
Of course not. You have to understand, the dollars that we have, the debt as a whole here. This is how they've managed to control us all. And just because one man, President Trump, is speaking out against as a matter of fact, President Trump wants to bring the Federal Reserve more to the forefront. As of last week, we heard he wants the Fed to keep the easy money going. He doesn't want rates to normalize. Everything prices off of what is occurring in the bond market. Bond market dictates risk in the stock market. If rates are being suppressed like we've seen now for an entire decade, what does that do? It forces cash into the stock market, therefore inflating a bubble. Your dollars are linked to the debt. They are units of debt. They are not units of wealth. You don't even own them. So forget about it. It's just not going to happen. The debt cannot be forgiven, although it's not even real because the cash isn't real that they're throwing at us. But the system is just so ugly and so twisted at its core that unless we were to go back to a commodity-backed, wealth-based system, that's it. There's no other alternative. You can't go from a fiat system onto another fiat system that just run its course. Although they're going to try to do that. The power of world central banks exists in their ability to keep their product in our pockets, in our bank accounts. It's not there, and us transacting in their product. Their product is debt, period. If we decide we're going to say, hey, you know what, we're not going to pay out any of our debt back, what would happen to our currency? For the person that asked that question, what would happen to their bills, whether the euros or dollars? Well, they would have a value of 0, which means you would not be able to use them to transact. You would end up homeless in a matter of overnight. That's the way the system is. This is why you need to have things like gold, like silver, more specifically silver, platinum, palladium, in an event that we get a total meltdown of the fiat currency system and they implement the new one. That's probably more than likely what's going to happen here. We're going to get some new thing. We've seen this before, the Soviet Union, when their system collapsed here. The same kind of thing is going to happen here. Well, okay, you're going to give us 100 of your dollars, and we're going to give you 1 of our whatevers, and this is what you're going to start transacting in. And it's not going to, again, you're going to lose a massive amount of whatever perceived wealth that you have. Most people have a 0 or negative net worth. They wander through life here as a debt slave. Number 1, get yourself out of debt. One way or the other, find a way to do it here. Don't exist like that. That's the most surefire way to have them puppetize you, to turn you into a puppet. Do you want to do that? Absolutely not. So that should be priority number 1. Get out from being a debt slave. However you got to do it. That's how you create wealth. That's how what's the difference, seriously, between a wealthy person or a person that maybe has a big, nice house and a really nice car? Well, if you zero out what they owe, the person with the nice big house and the nice car that they're owing on, they're actually living in a distorted environment. It's not real. They borrowed and they have to keep paying it back. But the guy or the woman out there who is really rich is the one that owns things, that actually has them in their hand, that doesn't owe on them. It's just a terrible system. I could go on and on about it, but seriously, that's how I see it.
Well, I think you've covered most of this next question, but there may be a twist right at the end that you can help us through. That's from Shandone90, writes, Greg Mannarino has long said the debt unwind will result in a collapse of the credit system, shortages of goods, massive loss of life worldwide. Does he see all of this as an intentional aspect of the plan of the elite or as an unplanned side effect of a debt-based fiat currency system? That's part 1. Part 2 is, as related to this, does he have any ideas for how the people might turn this upcoming trauma to our advantage to help us achieve greater freedom and a more fair economic system?
Unfortunately, because of what we have here, let's talk about the United States here mostly. We live in a nanny state, an entitlement state, and what scares me the most here is when this system is no longer able to provide for the nanny state and for the entitlement system. It's these kinds of people who have no conception of how this whole thing works at all, who are going to be in the streets, doing whatever they have to do to acquire whatever they need, and that means taking it from you. Now, understanding here that the system right now is running at 1,000 miles an hour in a way that it cannot possibly be sustained, puts us in a spot where, again, right now at least, we can try to do something about that. And that, again, goes back to what I was just saying: get yourself out of debt, become your own central bank, and understand that we've borrowed our way into the lifestyle that we're all used to living here, and it's not real. We continue to pull cash from the future in greater and greater amounts just to sustain where we are. And unfortunately, every single administration has to do the same thing, including this one. Has to keep borrowing, has to keep pulling cash from the future just to maintain where we are and to keep growing exponentially. There's going to be a breaking point. What's going to happen, in my view, how this is going to play out. And again, this is not just Greg here. This is, the Wall Street banks talking about this, former Fed chair people, investment banks, is when we get, and we're going to, a massive uncontrollable sell-off here in the bond market because the debt it can never be paid back. We all understand this. It's going to sell off rapidly. World central banks are going to have no choice but to either try to stop the bleeding. Once that happens, we're going to get another credit freeze. In other words, like your bank here wants to stop you from having access to your cash. There's a reason for that. And they're telling you right now, oh, this is going to happen, but we're going to let you take out whatever we want you to take out.
That's right.
So we get a credit freeze. Everything kind of freezes up again. People can't transact. It's an incredible thing. And we saw this before. This did happen in the last meltdown. The Fed came in, though, and they started buying everything. They started capital injections, and that unfroze the credit markets. They can't do that this time here, but they're going to attempt to. So we get this massive sell-off here in the debt market. The Fed will once again have to be, and they are right now, the lender of last resort. And once they do that, once they initiate another massive buy everything, what is that going to do to the currency? It's going to turn it into confetti, because every bill, however it's created, whether it's actually printed or whether it's added to a digital screen, where does it get its value from? It has to steal a fraction of a purchasing power from every other existing bill, digital or not. So you can see how that dynamic will work. And that's what I think has the potential to happen here. And this is why I also believe they already have something else in the works. Don't know what it is, have no idea, but they're going to spring it on us at one point, when they have no alternative. And they can't fix this. We can't grow out of it. That's the issue. Most people think that, everything is going to be fine, but we can't. We can't grow out of it. It's the truth, unfortunately. So it has the potential to be very ugly.
I think we've got one more question and then a comment from a different viewer that I thought you'd appreciate. This question comes from Eric Saint-Etienne. Warren Buffett is hoarding cash up to $1 billion, I've heard, but to buy companies during the dip of the recession. But with a weak dollar and possibly a currency reset, how is Buffett making sure his $1 billion doesn't melt like snow under the sun?
Well, I can promise you that Warren Buffett is not just in cash. I am more than certain he has a lot of cash laying around this guy. And as much as he puts down gold, I guarantee you this guy has a couple of tractor trailers full of it. There's no doubt about it in my mind. So he's not leaving himself exposed in this environment to anything that's going to hurt him or his family or anyone else. So you can forget about that. When guys like that come out and they say things, you got to look at it from a different perspective and say, what are they really trying to say for the average guy or the average girl? Take the opposite side of what they're saying, and you'll do just fine.
The last one is not a question, it's a comment from WK and Friends. Says, I love Greg. A lot of us do. He is awesome, and my question is simple. When are you going to take an entire weekend off to relax? You work tirelessly on everyone's behalf. That's wonderful, but you also need some downtime, even when things are looking crazy in the markets. Best wishes from one of your lionesses.
Oh, that's awesome. When am I going to take off? I don't know. Now I started doing this look ahead segment on Saturdays here. Look, for me, I get a real satisfaction out of doing this here, and I want people to understand these markets. I don't want anyone to be fleeced. I want people to at least be able to weaponize this market, use it against them, use it as a tool against them. These markets, as complicated as they may seem, aren't so complicated that the average guy or girl can't make it work for them to a certain degree. Pull some cash out of it, convert that cash into hard assets, because the system is rigged. It's rigged against everyone. I'm just trying to flip those tables a little bit here. So if I have to go out of my way and do a video here on a Saturday, you know what? It's worth it to me. I'll go out and do it. If people are liking what I'm saying, if I'm putting it into a perspective that they can understand and say, hold on a minute, wow, that really makes sense to me. Well, you know what? Then I've done something good. And I always say, we are responsible for each other. I am my brother's keeper or my sister lioness keeper here. So I will, without any doubt, go out of my way to try to clarify these things and put them into a perspective that people can understand. And that's why shows like yours are just so great, seriously.
Well, we're very grateful always, Greg, when you join us here. Now, I've asked you a lot of questions. There was more than we had time to get to, but do you have any parting thoughts for our audience or tips on how they can find your resources that you offer online?
Sure. First, I say watch this video twice because I think we covered some really important stuff. Number two, for me, go to my website, traderschoice.net. Everything you need is right there to have a basic understanding of these markets and capitalize on it. I mean, really, why should we lay down and be fleeced? Well, banks want to control our access to our own cash, which is not ours anyway. Anyway, all right, good deal. That's amazing. I hope people start talking about that. Very interesting.
Yeah, what I'll do is I'll actually take good, clear photos of some of these pages and post it nice and still during this. People can read it for themselves because it's just shocking how everything is so spun in terms of, hey, it's for your own good. We think we should limit your access to
Isn't it
your
always
money.
like that? Oh, this is for you. We're going to do it's for your own good. Yeah, don't worry about it. Yeah, you're going to take your life, but it's for your own good.
Yeah.
Anyway.
We've been speaking with Gregory Mannarino. Today is Monday, July 23rd, 2018. Gregory is the Robin Hood of Wall Street, is also the founder of TradersChoice.net. Greg, as always, thanks for joining us here again on Reluctant Preppers.
Thanks for having me back.